and welcome to day 2 of Strapi 5 launch. I'm excited because today we're going to have Jamie talk to us about Strapi Design Systems and what's new in V2, everything you need to know. Also, if you are a plugin developer, he's going to talk about the Plugin SDK and code mods that you could use to either start a brand new plugin or migrate an old plugin that you may have built in Strapi 4. And then we're going to have Ben talking about differences between entity service and document service and Strapi. So I'm excited to jump into the next talk. Let's start off with Jamie.
Welcome to this quick explainer video on version 2 of the Strapi Design System. With the recent release of Strapi V5, we've added many highly requested features to the core of Strapi, including a much improved draft and publish system, a type system throughout the application and code base, content history, and many more features. You can try this out for yourself by creating a Strapi app with this command. And you can learn more about Strapi V5 via our documentation or some links that we'll include below. To support the release of Strapi V5, our design system has also gone through a major upgrade from V1 to V2. And that's what I'll cover in this video. This release supports all the internal Strapi application UI and all of the new features we've added in V5, as well as supporting the Strapi community for building and maintaining plugins on top of Strapi V5. It's important that we use a design system with Strapi because it ensures our application and its plugins adhere to the same design standards, have a cohesive design language to remain visually consistent, and are accessible to whoever is using Strapi. You can find the code for our design system on GitHub here, and this repository provides 2 important packages. That is the design system itself. This is a set of React components used to build Strapi UI and that you will use to build Strapi plugins. You can browse the code in here, see all the different components that are offered. For example, this includes buttons, tables, accordions, and everything else you'll need to build on top of Strapi. The other package I wanted to mention is the icons package, which is a set of SVG icons you can use to enhance the look and feel of your plugin UI that will remain visually consistent with what is used in the core of Strapi. There are many different ways to build plugins for Strapi. As everything we do is completely open source, you really have complete freedom to build as you please. However, if you're considering building a new plugin or migrating an existing plugin for compatibility with Strapi V5, we highly recommend using our design system. Strapi hosts a marketplace of approved plugins here, and in order for your plugin to be listed here, it will be required that the UI is built using the design system. This just helps us ensure that our approved plugin ecosystem has that consistent look and feel and design language. Everything you need to know about building UI with our design system can be found through the Storybook documentation, which is linked in the README of the design system repo here. Storybook provides documentation and code examples for every component that our design system provides. On the left-hand side here, you can even split up into different categories. And if you navigate to them, you will be able to see how they should be used and different rough variants that will help you understand how to implement them in your plugin. If you feel the need to go beyond the examples here in Storybook, the Strapi monorepo code base is a fantastic place to explore and see the design system in action. If you browse the front-end code across all our different packages, you'll be able to see loads of different use cases for every single design system component that we provide. As with everything we build, we have the great power of open source and the Strapi community to help us maintain high quality products. So as you use Strapi and as you use the design system, please, as always, raise any bugs or ideas that you have in the relevant GitHub repo issues section. You may already be familiar with using our design system for building and maintaining plugins for Strapi V4. If so, thank you, first of all, for contributing to the set of plugins available with Strapi. We would love for these plugins to be migrated across to Strapi V5, as users of Strapi really value the breadth of plugins provided, and your support will help Strapi V5 evolve and reach more and more users over time. We want to support you as much as possible throughout this process, and you can refer to our documentation as always to learn everything you need to know about Strapi V5 itself. Specifically to the design system, we have a couple of resources that I think will be very useful, and I'd like to highlight here. First of all is the Strapi upgrade package, through which you can run some code mods on an existing V4 plugin that will help you automate some of the migration process across from V4 to V5. And a lot of this relates to the design system itself. To demonstrate this, I have cloned this plugin from our marketplace, plugin called To Do, which is currently compatible with V4. And that's where I am now in the terminal here. If I run this command on the Strapi upgrade package, we'll be able to see all the code mods that are available for me to run on this plugin to migrate it across to V5. If you look at the names here, you can start to get an understanding of the kind of things that are done with code mods. A lot of it is related to dependency changes or deprecations of packages. Specifically to the design system, a lot of what will be done in this code mod is design system related, and will be replacing things you used to do with the helper plugin with the design system. And in order to run those on your plugin, you run the same command, but with run, where you can interactively select what you want to run and then perform the migration on your plugin. If we go back to the storybook documentation for the Strapi Design System, we've also added a V1 to V2 migration guide, where we cover every breaking change that's happened to the design system going from V1 to V2. So if you have a V4 plugin that uses the design system fairly extensively, you may find that some of these are relevant to you. And going through this guide and finding the relevant examples should show you how to replace your V4 functionality in V5. I wanted to discuss the new Plugin SDK that exists from version 5 onwards in Strapi. It's a standalone package and repository to support Strapi plugin developers, and going forward, it will be the fastest and the recommended way to develop Strapi plugins. The core functionality that the Plugin SDK provides is an initialize command to scaffold a blank Strapi plugin and build tools for developing your plugin alongside a Strapi application. In our plugin development documentation, you can read through examples of each of these commands to understand how to run them on your own system. I will also show a demo of these now. Starting with the init command, one of the main benefits of having this separate plugin SDK now is that you can develop and start the development of your plugin completely separate from the Strapi application. Previously in V4, you had to be within a Strapi application where you had access to the Strapi CLI, but now the SDK is completely separate, so we can be anywhere on the system to start the Strapi plugin. So if I run this init command, we will be able to see the process of creating a new plugin. When you run the command, you will be presented with a wizard in your terminal that asks a few questions about the plugin you'll be developing, and I'll explain each question as we go. First of all, if you have your plugin tracked anywhere in source control, you can add a Git URL for it. You provide the plugin with a name, a display name, which is, we'll leave blank for this example, and a description. So this is all just metadata really for the plugin that gets added to the package JSON. Provide your name as the author, email, contact, and license information. From here on, the questions will be about the functionality really that you're providing with your plugin. This first one is really asking whether there will be any front-end components to your plugin. So if you plan to provide any UI, then the answer here is yes. And this is the same for backend, and we will say yes as well. This is VS Code Editor stuff and linting and prettier. And also now we can scaffold the plugin either as a JavaScript project or as TypeScript. Once everything is run and all the dependencies have been installed and stuff, you will have a brand new plugin at the path that you specified. The result of that is a completely blank Strapi plugin, but scaffolded out to work seamlessly with Strapi. There are a couple of ways to develop your plugin alongside a Strapi application. One is to link that plugin locally, just from your file system. This might be the most convenient if you're just working on something quickly by yourself. And the other is to publish it as a package and install it into Strapi that way. So now I'll demonstrate how to do that. If we start with linking the plugin locally, first of all, I'll just generate a new Strapi application running the latest version of V5. So here in VS Code, we have the new Strapi application that I just created. All I've done is run yarn to install the dependencies, and now we can run yarn to develop to start the app. I created my first admin user, so now we're into the Strapi admin panel, and as you can see, we're running on version 5. Now I'll show you how to link plugin that we created previously to this application. So now if we go back to the code base for our Strapi application, there's just some config we need to set up to point it at our SDK plugin that we created, and then we'll be able to see that it's installed in the app. So if we navigate to config and plugins, what we need to do is basically give this object the path to resolve to our local plugin. So you need to add a entry similar to this for the plugin you created, and that's all it takes to link a plugin locally. So now if we check our app is running, which it is, and go back, our plugin doesn't do much yet, but it does add this menu item in the left-hand side here. So we can see that from this that our plugin is linked and working. Now we can demonstrate one of the build commands the Plugin SDK provides, which is the watch command. So back in our plugin code, if we run yarn run watch, this will now be watching for changes we make in the plugin code base and rebuilding it as we do. So if we change something super simple, it's a pretty empty plugin, but we can at least change the message here. So roll, we can see that's triggering a rebuild of everything. And if we go back to our application that we linked the plugin locally into, we can see that the message has changed. So this is how you would develop a plugin locally. Now we can demonstrate the other way to install a plugin into a Strapi app, which is as a dependency or as a package. In order to do this, we will use the command that's provided by the SDK called watch link, which keeps everything locally still, but is akin to how the plugin would be if it was distributed and installed by an NPM or a package manager, like that. So from our plugin code base, again, we can run yarn watch link. In order to do this, you will need Yalk installed globally on your system. It uses Yalk to publish the package, basically, which we will then reference from the Strapi application in order to install it. Before running this, just make sure you have Yalk installed. Once you do, this is the output that you should see. So now back in the Strapi application, we need to retrieve that package from Yalk and link it into our app. And referring to the documentation, you can see that looks something like this. And in our case, the command we need to run is this. So if I run this, we're effectively doing the equivalent of installing the package via NPM, but locally using Yalk. So from the plugin side, we publish the Yalk, and from the Strapi application side, we're retrieving that package from Yalk. So now if we go back to our app running in the browser, we should be able to see again that the plugin is installed, and we can see the stuff it's adding to the front end here. If we go back to the plugin code and just change the message to something else, just to make sure that we're definitely getting the latest changes, we can see it's updated in the same way using the watch logic. And finally, once you want to distribute your plugin via a package manager, all you need to do is run the yarn build command and publish what you have to NPM as you would with any other package. If you have an existing plugin compatible with Strapi V4 and want to make it compatible with Strapi V5, it's not essential that you use these new Plugin SDK build commands. While it is now the recommended way to do plugin development, we will still support other plugin distributions, provided that your plugin has a Strapi admin or Strapi server entry point, as it should. That said, there are many benefits to the Plugin SDK, as you've seen already, and it's quite straightforward to retrofit your existing V4 plugin with the new build tools here. I will now demonstrate that with a simple plugin from V4. Now, to demonstrate the addition of these Plugin SDK build tools to a V4 plugin, I've checked out the V4 branch of the Strapi mono repo, and I'm going to work with the local plugin that's in the Get Started example here. This is a super simple plugin, but it will be a good opportunity for us to see like the fundamentals of the plugin that have to change to incorporate these build tools. Now for my audition for Blue Beta, if that's still a thing, here's what I prepared earlier with this plugin. So if we explore the diff here in source control, we'll be able to see the main things that have changed. The most important thing is the changes we've made to the package JSON. I'll walk through all the changes top to bottom and explain what's going on here. So first of all, you can see I've removed the Strapi admin and Strapi server files from the plugin itself and replace that basically with the exports and filed entries in the package JSON. You can see that exports here defines what is to be considered Strapi admin and what is to be considered Strapi server, and in a lot of cases points to the dist folder, which is where the plugin code will be built into when we run our build command. In the script, we've just added everything we've discussed previously in this video, the build commands from the plugin SDK. And finally, the dependencies. This is just the minimum set of dependencies that the plugin will need in order to be built via the plugin SDK. Now from the root of our local plugin that's now been migrated to use the plugin SDK, we'll be able to run commands like we did before, like yarn run watch, to watch for changes in our plugin and rebuild as the changes are made. But that's it for this video on the plugin SDK. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful, and thank you for contributing to Strapi as always. And good luck building stuff on top of Strapi V5. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ben, and I'm a senior backend engineer at Strapi. In this video, I'm going to be introducing you to the new document service that we've developed for Strapi 5, which replaces the entity service and allows for a lot of powerful new features. Strapi 5 introduces the concept of a document. What is a document? All the entities that make up the different locales and drafts and historical versions of a piece of content are considered a document. So if I write an article in English and I translate it to French and then publish it and then maybe continue editing another draft version of it, all of that creates a lot of different database entries. All of those entries, all of those entities from Strapi 4 are considered the same document and can be referenced by the same document ID. So why did we need the document service? The document service is what makes it easy to manage all of those documents. The entity service from Strapi 4 was great for managing individual pieces of content, but trying to group all of those together and manage those different dimensions of the same piece of content, like localizations, publication status, and content history with the entity service is very complicated and inefficient. It's important to know that in Strapi 5, published versions of a document are treated as immutable or unable to be changed. This is one reason it's dangerous to continue using the entity service, because it would be very easy to create broken data in the different entities within a document, attempting to try to manage all of those aspects manually. Once something is published, a new draft version will be created automatically. This has made possible the new draft and publish system that allows editing content while keeping the published version. And you can see we can save this draft and our published version is intact. When ready to publish it, we just click publish. It also has allowed the content history feature available on Enterprise Edition and Strapi Cloud, which we can see here. We can find the old version of our document, restore it as a draft, and when we're ready, we can publish it again. In addition to that, internationalization has been integrated into core Strapi. So without the addition of the document ID and the document service, all of those features I just showed you would require the use of an extra join table, making your queries complex and slow. In Strapi 5, you'll even see that the localizations tables for content type have now been removed, and we have a data migration that automatically groups those relations into documents instead, allowing for simpler and faster database queries. So, how does the document service API work? The API is very similar to the entity service, so don't worry. All the old function names have stayed the same, and we've officially added support for some that were undocumented in V4, such as count, and we've added a few new ones too. The document service calls are strongly typed and are aware of your content types, so if you're using TypeScript and it's supported by your text editor, you now have full TypeScript support, providing auto-suggest for every parameter in your queries, and full support for your content type attributes and their data types. Document service calls are also validated, so even if you're not using TypeScript, when you accidentally make a mistake writing your query, it will throw an error so you know right away something is wrong. For example, if you type the name of one of your attributes wrong in your filters, the document service will let you know that the attribute doesn't exist, instead of silently ignoring it like in Strapi 4. So you can save a lot of time debugging and avoid subtle bugs in your code. So now I'll explain some of the new functions that we've added specifically for draft and publish. For example, let's say that you want to find an article that you wrote in English and publish the French version of it. So the first thing we're going to do is find our article. And for that, we just use strapi.documents. We pass it the UID. That would be articles. And as you see, it has TypeScript support available, so it knows exactly what is in your list of content types. Then we're going to see what method we want to use. Here we're going to use find first, so we just get one article. It accepts params that are pretty much identical to Strapi 4. The locale is at the root level, so we're going to look for our English article, and we're just going to select one that has specific title. So we use filters just like before, and as you see, we have TypeScript support for all of this, so we can get a nice autocomplete. We're going to find a title that contains health. Also, we're just interested in finding a draft article, so we can pass it a status. We'll say draft. So now if we have an article, we're going to publish the French version. So again, we use strapi.documents, article. Here we call publish. by default, publish will publish the default locale of your Strapi instance. Here we only want to publish French. So we pass the document ID, and we pass locale French. And this will publish a French version of your document. Next, we can look at unpublish, which is very similar to publish. Let's say we want to unpublish the Italian version at the same time. So we do the same thing. We find the model we want to unpublish, pass it the document ID. Notice it's the same document ID because it's all one document. And this time we just pass it locale IT for Italian. It works exactly the same as publish. The only difference is that it unpublishes versus publishing. And this handles everything in the background, creating the published version in the targeted locale, creates the new draft for it, everything that you don't need to worry about yourself. Finally, we'll get to discard drafts. Let's say you want to undo some changes by some user, or just some changes that you made to your content type. You haven't published it yet, and you just want to go back to the draft version, or back to the published version. So for that, you use discard draft. Just like the other methods, it's available in TypeScript, so you can just use autocomplete. We're going to find an article by a certain user. So we filter by updated by. We look for any draft article that this user has created. Then we simply call discard draft. And here, again, we pass it the document ID that we're targeting. And we're going to say the same locale that we selected in the original, which in this case would be the default locale, whatever it found. So this would delete the draft that was created by that user and clone the published version as a new draft so that it resets it back to what it was. To help migrate you from the entity service to the document service, we've created an upgrade tool that will run code mods on your V4 code. For those who don't know, code mods are a quick and easy way to automatically refactor your code. One side effect of the document service is the effect that they have on database lifecycles. In Strapi 4, the database lifecycles and lifecycle hooks were a reasonably safe way to track the changes to your content and make changes to them or perform additional actions based on what you've done. In Strapi 5, they're still there, but because of the new document system, they are much less useful for the purposes they were used for in Strapi 4. Because a simple action like a publish causes a lot more database activity than expected. For example, like I said earlier, publishing a document will trigger a lifecycle hook for both update and create for every targeted locale, which is probably not something that you want. So to avoid triggering a lot of potentially dangerous lifecycle hook calls when you start Strapi 5 for the first time, when you upgrade to Strapi 5 with the upgrade tool, your life cycles will be commented out with a warning and a link to help you migrate them to the document service middleware. So let's look at an example. Let's say you had a lifecycle hook that emailed an editor every time their article was published. In Strapi 4, you would have checked for all database updates, and when the update was performed on an article, you would check the status, see if it changed, and take action based on that. Now I'm going to show you how you would implement the same behavior using the document service middleware. So with document service middlewares, you will simply use documents.use, which allows you to set a middleware, and it accepts a function that will take a context in next, and it should always return the result of the next. But this doesn't really do anything. So first, we're going to check for our specific case. We're going to look for the action of publish. So if it's not publish, we're going to return. And if we also need the article UID. So we'll check for that, and then we will return. So now we know that we are looking at a publish action on an article. So the first thing we need to do is await the result of the next. That will take the query that was going to the document service and return the result for you. And we'll make sure to return that. However, now we also need to check if we received a result, if the publish did something. And if it did, then we can pass that document to our email method. Hopefully that gives you some context around the new document service and why it was created. It's unlocked a lot of cool stuff in Strapi 5, and we've made the transition from the entity service as smooth as possible. As you just saw, in most cases, you won't even notice the difference aside from the name. So if you have any questions, you can always find us on the Strapi Discord or submit any issues on GitHub. And thanks for watching.
Oh my gosh, those were such a good in-depth presentations. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. And finally, we'll see you tomorrow where we're going to talk about Vite and TypeScript support with JS and Alex. So I'll see you in the next one.